Assalamu alaikum viewers. I'm Sana Khattak and today I'm here on Opportunities Corner with another IELTS session, and today's session is about IELTS marking criteria. It is a slightly complex thing to realize how IELTS authorities mark your papers. Hence, we have organized this session for all of you so that you can understand how people mark your IELTS criteria, your IELTS exams. So before we start this session, I'd like to tell you all that if you have any questions related to IELTS marking criteria, please mention them in the comment section. And at the end of this session, I'll be taking all your questions. I'll be answering to them individually. But in the end of the session, before that, I'll be discussing all the criteria for the 4 modules of IELTS General as well as IELTS Academic Test. So when we have reached our viewers, when we have some viewers, inshallah, I'll start by telling you about the IELTS marking criteria. So before that, I'll warn you all that the marking criteria is slightly complex. So just listen to it once and then don't come back again and again to see the IELTS criteria, except for the listening and the reading modules. Try to develop the habit of writing your essays and your spoken text according to the IELTS criteria. So I think we've got enough viewers. Let's start with the IELTS. Okay, so today's session is about IELTS marking criteria, and this session is brought to you by Opportunities Corners in collaboration with Language House, which is your all-purpose English language learning website. So let's start the session formally. Yes. Okay. So as you can see, today we are going to discuss IELTS marking criteria. And for that purpose, we'll start with IELTS listening module. So in order to explain to you how your listening module is marked, first I will tell you that what an IELTS listening module contains. In an IELTS listening module, it is half an hour long, and you have to solve 40 questions in half an hour. You are given 10 extra minutes in case you are taking paper-based test to transfer your answers from your question sheet to the answer sheet. So basically, the questions are objective type questions, and you have exactly half an hour plus 10 minutes to transfer your answers on your answer sheet. So right now on the screens, I think you guys can all see my listening score sheet. Let me explain this to you guys. Most of the people want to have a 6.5 or 7 score. So look at the right hand side, you can see band scores. And for 6.5 band score, you need 26 correct answers out of those 40 questions that you have to attempt in your IELTS listening exam. And if your IELTS target band is more than that, if it is 7, then you have to answer at least 30 correct answers in your listening module. Then you'll have band 7. And if your target is 7.5, then you'll have to answer at least 32 correct answers in your IELTS listening module. So for listening purposes, it is quite easy to ascertain your own band score in any of the sample tests. And for practice purposes, you can go to the authentic IELTS website, www.britishcouncil/IELTS. And there you can find material related to IELTS listening. And if you register with them, you can also receive a lot of free listening material, audios plus the question sheets. And when you solve them at the end of that, you are also provided an answer key. You can find your answers. You can check your answers from there and then come back to this slide and see that how many correct answers have you answered and that will translate into your band. So I repeat, for most of the scholarships, because we are on the we are on the opportunities corner, and this page is all about scholarships. So most of you would be needing a band 7, which means that you need to answer at least 30 correct answers out of 40 in your listening module. So this was all about the listening module, and now let's move on to the next slide, which is IELTS reading scores for general training. It is very similar, just like the listening scoring. And before I explain how reading scores are obtained, I'd like to tell you guys that what does a general reading module contain and how the reading module is conducted in the real IELTS test exam. So for IELTS General, you'll be given 3 to 4 paragraphs. 1 to 2 paragraphs would be about general brochures or general common everyday life documents. It will be about that. And the last paragraph, however, will be of academic nature, just like in the academic tests. And you'll have to answer 40 objective type questions, and the time would be 1 hour. Unlike your listening module, in the reading module, you are not given extra 10 minutes to transfer your answers from your question sheet to the answer sheet. So I recommend that from the beginning, transfer your answers to your answer sheet. That is a pro tip by Language House and by me to you guys. And now let's look at the scores. So as most of the people are looking for scholarships, so you would be requiring a band 6.5. Sorry, let me explain to you that IELTS general module is taken by those people who seek an immigration abroad. And if you're if your immigration is to Canada, then your general score in reading module should not be less than band 7. In cases, sometimes it is accepted if you have a band score of lower than 7, like 6.5, it is also acceptable, but usually you are not given that margin otherwise. So your band score should be 7, which means that you need to have at least 34 correct answers in your IELTS general training exam. So now we'd like to move on to the um, IELTS academic module. And if you're taking IELTS academic module, then you need to have at least 30 correct answers to score a band 7. If you're applying for some high scholarship, or for example for MPhil or PhD or masters, which is equivalent to MPhil, then you'll be needing a band 7.5 or maybe more. So in case you need to have a band 7.5 for an academic purpose, then you should not score less than 33 in your IELTS academic reading module. So you can take a snapshot of this screen, and if you cannot take a screenshot right now, you can later just type in your internet IELTS reading scores for academic module, and this same screen will glow in front of your eyes, so you can note it down at that time. My recommendation is, whether you are taking IELTS general or you are taking IELTS academic, uh, take a printout of this slide and paste it on your preparation folder, the folder which you use to write your essays or practice your sentences or vocabulary or anything. It should be in your access. You should see it every day. And whenever you solve a sample test, a practice test, just come back to this and see how many answers, how many correct answers were there on that specific sample test. This way you'll know that right now which band you are on. That will be your current band. So gradually, when you practice more and more, your reading band will be improving, and you can keep an eye on your progress in this way. And as soon as you begin to achieve the band that is your target band, that is your required band, you can just stop your practicing and book your test. So I think here we should take a small break, and it's quite challenging to just absorb all the information that I'm just providing all of a sudden. So I hope you guys have understood the scoring criteria for IELTS academic and general. Okay, I think there is some problem with the voice. Um, let me see. Okay, now the voice problem has been resolved. So let's move on. Okay, so naturally we got a small window in that. Okay, Ji. So now I'm going to explain to you how IELTS speaking test is assessed in a real IELTS exam. So, well, I will not be telling you exact band scores, but explaining this criteria will give you an idea that when you're preparing for IELTS exam, what you should be expecting and what are the skills you should be focusing on in order to get a very good band in IELTS spoken. So, well, there are four basic criteria, which is fluency, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. So these are the four criteria, or you can say these are the four skills or characteristics that you need to have in your IELTS spoken test in order to attain a very good band. And if you have all these four things in your IELTS exam, definitely you will achieve a very good band, probably a band 7, which is a requirement for most of the scholarships and degrees, and you'll be good to go. So I would like to explain these four criteria in a little bit detail. Fluency. So what does fluency mean? I have also explained this one before in the previous session about vocabulary, but I'd like to repeat it again. So fluency means talking at length. That whichever topic you are given, you don't stop in that. You just fluently talk about it. And fluency also means that you do not have any pauses or hesitations, which means many people have this habit of saying in their test. For example, if they want to say that they like this color and this color has specific importance in their culture, so they say something like this. I like red color and this color has a very good importance in our culture. So all this is counted as pause or a hesitation in your spoken test, and definitely it will bring your band down. And this is the most common problem with people who get bad band in IELTS exam. They're just habitual of adding this over and over again and again. So in English, this is counted as counter to your language fluency. Try to avoid this. The second thing is talking without self-correction. If you have said something wrong, I would not recommend you to correct that, because self-correction will also be penalized in the IELTS exam. And then able to be understood. Yeah, here your pronunciation comes into play. If you add too much of gap in your speech, then the other person will forget what you were talking about. It's really hard to understand somebody who's talking with a lot of gap in their speech. Hence, this also will reduce your marks for fluency. And the last point is, this is a grammatical thing that you have to introduce in your speech, which is using linking devices. Just like I told you in the previous session that you have to use cohesive devices in order to make your speech or your written essay seem like one unit. You also have to use these cohesive devices, these linking devices in your IELTS spoken test. If you have two sentences, you can maybe add one and make one sentence out of it. So this will make you more fluent. Instead of speaking shorter sentences, you can speak two sentences joined by an and. That is one of the ways to make your language seem more fluent. And then we move on to the lexical resource. In easy terms, you can say lexical resource means use of your vocabulary. So in our first session about IELTS on Opportunities Corner. We talked about IELTS vocabulary in great detail, and if you want to know more about IELTS vocabulary, or if you want to practice IELTS vocabulary further, you can go back to that video, which was from a day before yesterday, and you can have more information about IELTS vocabulary. However, here I'm talking about IELTS vocabulary with respect to the spoken exam. And so, which means that using a range of words or paraphrasing. Why do you need paraphrasing? If the examiner has asked you a question and you want to confirm, then do not repeat the question in exact same words. You can use different words to repeat that question, and that will be perfectly fine for you. If you have to repeat one word again and again, maybe you can use synonyms of that word, just like in the previous session. I told you guys that for thinking in English, there are 4 or 5 different terms, and depending upon the context, you can use a completely different word. So this way, you will not be repeating, you will be using new words all the time. And using less common vocabulary, yes, using less common vocabulary means using slightly difficult words or appropriate words, using expected vocabulary, but it should be appropriate and according to the conversation you are carrying out. This point was also discussed in our session on IELTS vocabulary, and you can check back from there. And lastly, avoiding errors, any kinds of errors, errors in meaning or errors in pronunciation, you should avoid that. Then we come towards grammatical range and accuracy. Well, this is a well-known fact, and everybody knows that in an IELTS spoken test, you're supposed to speak language which is free of grammatical mistakes. And number one mistake that people make is with grammatical tenses. People do not speak correct tense, which is needed for the IELTS specific part. And yes, lastly, avoiding error is also important. It is also important to use a variety of sentences, which means that you can use complex sentences, you can use coordinate sentences, and a few simple sentences as well. This gives an idea that this person has a complete command over English grammar. So whenever you are to improve your IELTS range and grammatical accuracy, you can come towards this section and just improve these 3 things. Tenses, types of sentences, and just try to avoid grammatical errors. Pronunciation. Yes, many of the people who come to me for IELTS spoken test practice, they are just obsessed with pronunciation, and most of the people think that they are supposed to speak either British English or American English in order to score good in an IELTS exam. Well, let me clarify this for you all that no, it is not the case. You're not supposed to imitate British or American or Australian or any other accent. Whatever is your natural accent, just go with that and follow the above 3 criteria that you right now see on your screen. Pronunciation just means being able to understood throughout the test. It means that your pronunciation is clear enough and the other person can understand what you are saying. Only that is required. Able to use intonation. Well, that is something new for you guys, I think, but this has to do with for Pakistani speakers and Indian speakers, this has to do with the utar chadhav in your speech. You should not be monotonic. Monotonic sentences are such that I am going to school. This is a monotone. It doesn't have any ascend in the speech. It doesn't have any fall in the speech. And it does not seem like a sentence at all. Whenever we are speaking in our native language, there is a rise in our tone and then there is a fall in our tone. In English language, there are a few types of intonation, and the most common one is rise. For example, when we are asking any question, we start slow and at the end of the sentence, our intonation is at the peak. For example, if I have to say, where are you going? So I'd be like, where are you going? Start slow and then you rise. But this is something that requires time to practice. The best way to achieve intonation, a native speaker like intonation, is watch English seasons, movies, and listen to the music as well. Accent doesn't affect understanding. Yes, it is very important that your accent doesn't have an anomaly that makes it harder for the examiners to understand what you are saying. And the last is accurate words and sound pronunciation is important. Again, I'm not saying that your pronunciation should be according to one of the recognized accents like British, American, or Indian. It can be simple, any pronunciation which is according to your area, but it should be legible. That is more important. So I hope you guys have understood that how IELTS speaking is marked. If you want to search it further, if you want to see exactly which band you are on, it's not exactly possible for all the people who do not have very good English to mark their current band in IELTS spoken. So I recommend that you hire a teacher who knows much about IELTS marking criteria, who can tell you, who can evaluate your speech and tell you which current band in spoken IELTS you are right now on. And IELTS and Language House provides you with that facility. Language House has a complete course for specifically preparation of IELTS spoken module, where you have 10 practice tests, and in every test you're given an evaluation according to the IELTS criteria. You're just told according to these 4 criteria that according to these criteria, on which band do you stand right now. And also you receive many exercises to improve your band. And yes, practice is provided to you guys. So if you want to improve your spoken, you'll have to join a teacher, and either you can join Language House, or you can use any other teacher who's closer to your destination where you live. Okay, so now I'm coming towards the most difficult module, which is IELTS writing module. And most of the people find it really hard to access how they are going on with their writing. Many students came to me with the idea that they had very good English level, and when they took IELTS test, they got a really just nominal band, 5.5 or even 6, but they were really heartbroken and disappointed. Well, let me explain this to you all, that getting a bad band in IELTS writing does not mean that you necessarily have a bad written English. It can also mean that you do not know enough about IELTS essay or task 1 criteria, and you're not following the guidelines provided by University of Cambridge. University of Cambridge is the entity which is responsible for conducting and issuing IELTS results and certificates. So let's discuss with task achievement. Well, the marking of task 1 and task 2 is slightly different. What is IELTS task 1? Let me explain to you what IELTS writing module is all about. IELTS writing module is a 1 hour long module, and it has 2 tasks. Task 1 for general module is just a letter, and it's very easy. You're given an outline and you just expound that outline and your letter is written. Whereas for IELTS academic, the task 1 is an analytical paragraph. You're either given a pie chart, or it can be a graph or a flow chart, a process, or something similar. And you'll have to make analysis on that paragraph. You can use 150 words to answer the question, and this is your task 1 in IELTS academic. So there, both, whether it is general or it is academic, both are judged according to the same criteria. You have to present accurate information and provide an overview, whether it is a letter or it is your an analytical module. In both, you have to provide an overview and then highlight the key features or the stages of the process. You have to tell that if it is, for example, if it is a flow chart which tells you how cement is made. So you have to highlight and tell how cement is made, the key features only. And then you have to support the detail with data. Whatever is written in the paragraph, whatever is written in the flow chart, you have to use that data and mention that in the analysis paragraph. So if you have met all these 4 criteria, you are going to have a very good band. If you have also met the other 3 criteria. And for task 2 is same, whether you are doing IELTS academic or you are doing IELTS general. It is an academic essay which is known as IELTS essay, and that requires addressing the task, which means that whichever question has appeared in your IELTS writing module, you have to answer that specific question, and your points should be relevant. In yesterday's session, I explained to you guys what is coherence and cohesion. That is exactly this thing, that you have to answer what is asked in the question. Giving a clear position, that means that your opinion should be really clear, that whether you are with the topic or you're against the topic. Many people come up with the question that what if we have a neutral opinion? Even if you have a neutral opinion, then it should be very clear and justified that it is logical to have a neutral opinion on that specific issue. Remember, on all the issues, it is not possible to have a neutral opinion, because sometimes having a neutral opinion can also mean having no opinion, which will be against that. So my recommendation is either go with the topic or against the topic clearly. That will be easier. And of course, provide a conclusion. That is a required thing. Then coherence and cohesion, we talked about this criteria yesterday in great detail. If you want to know more about this, you can go back to that video and watch in detail that how coherence and cohesion can be added to an IELTS writing essay. Then comes the IELTS a lexical resource. Again, vocabulary. Our first session was about the vocabulary, and I gave you many resources. Also, I told you tips and tricks on how to improve your vocabulary. And once you have improved your coherence, cohesion, and vocabulary in the English language, your general spoken English will also be improved and your confidence will go up. So, what I suggest is that even if you do not need an IELTS exam, you can use these two portions to improve your general confidence and your communication skills, because they come into play whether or whatever field you are in. So, I recommend working on these two things. The third thing is a grammatical range and accuracy. This is the last one when you are writing something. So using a range of different sentences, just like it was in the spoken tense, using simpler sentences, complex and complex coordinate sentences is required, and tenses should be correct. Punctuation. Many people forget that IELTS essay is an academic essay, and punctuation gives intonation to your essays. So it is required, because by skipping punctuation like commas or full stop, you actually change the meaning of the sentences that you're using. So try to add punctuation. And if you feel that you're lacking on your punctuation, Language House offers a very good course for IELTS writing as well, where you get 20 essays rechecked. I don't think so we have any other institute where you get your essays checked in this much detail. So I recommend that you if you want to have a very good band, you can join Language House. And even if you don't want to enroll in the course, you can go to the page on Instagram and Facebook, which is Language House PK, and you can get free tips and tricks for that. So that was all for today's session. Now we'll be moving to the comments, and we'll see what other people have said about this. I completely understand that understanding IELTS marking criteria is slightly difficult for many people. So what you can do is that you can go back to this video and watch it again and again. And if you have specific questions, you can even ask them on Language House page. So let me see the comments. Okay, so this is our first question, and this is by Douglas Nathaniel. Thanks for this. Please explain explicitly what is IELTSL. Is it the same as the language test that is required for anyone who wants to study from UK university? I think he has misspelled the IELTS. IELTS is a recognized language exam which is required by most of the universities of UK and around the world if you want to have any degree in English language. So I hope that answers the question. And yes, then we have another question. It is important. This is by Uzairul Haq, and he's asking, ma'am, is there negative marking in IELTS? Well, Uzair, there is no negative marking in IELTS test. So I recommend that even if you do not know the answer to a specific question in IELTS listening or reading, then you can do some guesswork and fill that answer. Do not leave it blank, because there is no negative marking in any of the IELTS modules. Then let's move forward. There is another question. Okay, so the other question is, Madam, both general and academic are given by a student, or any one of two will be given? Well, you either take IELTS academic or IELTS general. You cannot take both at the same time. And IELTS academic is taken by the people who are going to do some serious job work or are going for a degree or scholarship. Otherwise, if you're going for immigration, you'll take IELTS general, and it is a requirement. It usually goes this form. However, I recommend that you should ask the authorities wherever you are applying, that which specific type of IELTS is for you, and do that specific types. Okay, so well, there is another one. This is a general question that I've answered in all the previous sessions as well. From which website can we practice IELTS? Well, I have said it again and again. You can go to Language House Facebook and Instagram page, and there are numerous free tips and tricks for you to improve on your IELTS. Also, you can follow IELTS with Liz. That's another website. You can also go to the official University of Cambridge website. You can also go to www.britishcouncil/IELTS, and there are numerous other sites, but I do not recommend consulting all these sites for preparation, because that might confuse you. So some more questions I want to take on. Well, there is another question, and this is of the general nature. This is by Fahim Khan. I want to take IELTS. How much study I have to do, and how can I improve all my tasks? Well, Fahim, I've just explained to you how you can check your current band in all the 4 modules of IELTS exam. You cannot do spoken and writing. For that, you can contact Language House. But by doing the sample test, you can get your current bands. And then obviously the authorities you're applying to must have told you that which is your required band. So it depends upon what is your current band and what is your required band. That defines how much time will be needed by you. Also, different people take different time in preparing for language tests. So we cannot apply the same rules to everyone. Everyone takes different time, and your specific case can be discussed with Language House individually. You can get a free evaluation. Yes, somebody's asking about negative marking. Maha Khan is asking about negative marking. That I've told there is no negative marking in IELTS test. And okay, G. So there is another question by Sadaf Khan. How we come to know that we are doing mistakes and we have to improve? Well, in listening and reading, you can see that you are making mistakes. You have the chart, and you can see if you are scoring appropriately, then it means that you are on that band. For example, if you're scoring 34 marks in an IELTS academic reading module, then it means that you are on band 7. And same goes for listening. I have shared the charts. You can also look at the charts and see how much you are scoring. That will tell you the band you are on. Well, for IELTS spoken and for IELTS writing, you cannot tell yourself. You either need a teacher, or you can go to Language House PK on Instagram or on Facebook and just avail their services. They can provide you evaluation free of any charge of 1 essay. That is one of the ways you can know that on which band you stand, and seek help over there. Our time is going a little bit over, so I will just be taking the important questions. If there are any questions which are left, I'll ask Language House to answer you guys personally. There is Muniba Yasin. She has a question. Kindly inform us if someone wants to prepare IELTS on her own behalf without going to join in preparation academy, then how to practice it? What kind of website can provide best of the stuff, and what are the books to follow? Well, for that, you can go to Language House free page, and you can get tips and tricks. You can follow IELTS with Liz, and you can follow Barron's book if you do not have a teacher. But I highly recommend for spoken and writing module, you do need a teacher who can you can mark your mistakes and tell you how to eradicate them, because every person is making different mistakes and you cannot mark your mistakes by your own self. So with that, because our time is running short, I'd like to end our session over here. And if you have any other questions, you can ask those questions to us at Language House page. I'll be sharing the page with you guys. Here it is. So you can follow the Language House page, and by there you'll receive many tips and tricks, and you can also ask us if you have any questions about IELTS. You can message us the questions over there. Okay, Ji. With that, I hope today's session was really useful for you all. And if you have any further questions related to IELTS marking, please send us on Language House PK on Facebook or Instagram. And inshallah, we'll be back tomorrow and with another session about IELTS, which is, yes, it is about the common blunders people do in IELTS exam, which is tomorrow. And I'd like to thank Opportunities Corner for providing us this time where I can tell you all about IELTS exam. So inshallah, see you tomorrow. Till then, Allah Hafiz.